Having a little problems getting the recording started, but I think we've got it now. It just keeps saying there's an error, but I think we're online now. All right. Thank you for being here today. We do have a great showcase for you today. I say that about every showcase we do. We've done 89 of these showcase events. So I want to let you know that this is sponsored by Automotive Service Leaders. We created this showcase event 89 times ago. We started this program back in October of 2007. We've been doing these live events across the country here for the automotive industry, interviewing shop owners and people in the know so you can hear what other people are doing around the country without getting in an airplane and traveling across country to talk to them. So my name is Gary Gunn. I am your host, and as we always like to do, this is a no-charge type program. We don't charge a fee for being in this showcase with us. So we do have some sponsors that we want to tell you about because they help pay the bills, so this can be free of charge to the automotive aftermarket, as you folks have benefited from. So ASA, Automotive Service Association, if you are not an ASA member, please go to asashop.org and let them know you saw it during showcase. And Gary Gunn sent you over there. It's always nice for them to get new members and keep members going. It's a great organization, so please look into that and join if you wish. And they are a sponsoring agent. Also, our company has something called the Payoff Tools. These are tools that have been built with the shop owner in mind so that they can create a leadership without breaking a sweat, management on cruise control. There are 10 tools on our library, on our website. They're absolutely free. Go there, click on the free payoff tools in the blue line, in the blue header, or either in the upper header on top of the website called free payoff tools. So click that, take advantage of those because we like to, that's kind of our free oil changes to our industry and making everything available so that we can help the shop owners become better at what they do. All right, now, Auto Shop Lifeline is our, I guess for intents and purposes, it's a no-travel, webinar-based, audio-video file-based training program. It's $44 per month for ASA members national. If you're not an ASA member, it's $88, and this is the program within our business that is sponsored. We're a sponsored benefit provider. So there's only 37 of us around the country, and we love to wear this hat because that's a very important thing for us to do. So if you're not in the Lifeline program, click on our website, look at it, get a hold of me, and I'll explain the details to you of how that works. So we have Select Group, the 20 Group program, the Honor Circle. We also have what we call our Mailbox Marketing program, which is Mudlick Mail, and that's going after new clients as well as your existing clients. Send out cards for retention and relationship building, Auto Vitals for marketing on the web, and getting people to hit your website and move around. So these are some of the major people that are on. We've got, of course, Send Out Cards. We have Mudlick Mail, which is a partner. We've been together for some time now. We've been servicing auto repair shop owners around the country. If you need to get a hold of Mudlick Mail, you can always find them on our website. You can get them in our Friday emails that go out called Shop Tips. And you can also call Tim direct, or you can go to mudlickmail.com and go in that direction. If you're not doing direct mail, I highly, highly suggest it because that is what works and keeps the car count moving. So we also have a company called Auto Vitals. You'll find that information on our website. And talk to Uwe Kleinsmith, if you will. And then also if you need some web work done, you need some updating, need some things like that done to your site, Derek Price is the guy that works on ours, and he is a alliance partner with us also. We have Heartland Payment Systems. If you're looking for somebody to clear your credit cards and do your payroll for you, they won't pay your people. You'll have to pay them, but they'll take care of all the paperwork, file the forms. They have a good system there, so get a hold of Chris Danner at Heartland Payment Systems. And we have another alliance partner that we have with Automofo. And Automofo is a company owned by Cecil Bullard. He is a friend of mine and a coach around the country. Cecil has some great information. Get Automofo on your training hit parade. Now, today, last time that Tim and I were on, we talked about the $50,000 challenge for summer of 2010. And what that amounts to is we're challenging shop owners to create another $50,000, not in sales volume, but $50,000 in increase in your working capital or an increase in your reserve account. So during the summer months is the time to stockpile that money. That's why there's 5 stacks of money here at $10,000 per stack. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But please sign on, get involved in that $50,000 challenge, because I think it's very possible this summer to put that money away in case you may need that during a slower time of the year to keep your advertising going, to keep your operation going smoothly. All right. A little bragging here on Showcase. Since we started, we've had 4,125 hits in our library. Those are folks that have come to the library to listen to the audio-video files. You see the massive page loads, the unique visitors, and we've had over 1,100 people come to Showcase Live. Those are different people coming to Showcase Live. So there's 1,100 shop owners we have come into. Today we're here to discuss the why between the why because of the why. Why are we doing the things that we do? And everybody knows who I am here. Greg Sands has put this today. And I'll let him introduce himself, tell us a little bit about him in case you don't know who he is. So Greg, I want to welcome you to Showcase, and thank you for being here. And if you will, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, Gary, thanks, and I always love coming on here. I appreciate you as a partner. You know, that's been a great little partnership between our companies. And so let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I've been in the automotive business now for 19 years. Back in the 90s, I grew a chain of Goodyear stores. We grew 38 stores in the state of Texas. And back in 2000, I sold out. We were doing $45 million in sales. I had kept, as part of my buyout, I'd kept some stores that we had in Atlanta, and came up here. We had 5 stores in Atlanta, and my intentions were to retire at that point, and that lasted just a few months, and then I realized that, you know, I really wasn't built that way. So we started to grow, and as we grew in Atlanta. Today we presently have 10 stores. They're called America's Service Station. In the last, I guess, about 2 or 3 years after I sold out, the company that I sold in Texas had sold, and that company ended up dissolving. They sold out to another company, and I was able to go back and buy some of my stores back in Texas. So I have 7 locations down in Houston, Texas, called Drivers Auto Repair. And then 2 years ago, I started working on a brand new concept. And one of the things I'm most excited about is a concept that really took all the mistakes that I made over the last 19 years and tried to go, okay, if I didn't have these things, these mistakes and hours the way I want them, all that stuff. And so I created a new company that I think is superior to anything that I've done, and that's called Service Street. And you can look at it, go to servicestreet.com, and we hired the people that designed Starbucks to design our building, and we've put a lot of time and energy into that vehicle, and that's really my growth vehicle for the future, that and Drivers. And back 2 years ago, Tim Ross and I, Tim was my account rep at an advertising firm, and I really liked him a lot, and I had hired Tim to come in and work as a general manager with the intentions of probably running one of my operations. And so Tim came here, learned the company, learned the systems, learned how to run a store, but that really wasn't his desire, was to stay in operations. So we developed Mudlick Mail. I thought, you know, this guy has so much talent, I want to keep him. I'll just help create a new company. And so we created Mudlick Mail, and Mudlick Mail has been just an incredible success story. As you know, Gary, you've been a part of it as arm's length. It has grown fourfold in 2 years, and all really pretty much all on the shoulders of Tim Ross, and he's built a great team there. So maybe that's a good, hopefully that's a good overview. We now have 3 service streets. One's in Atlanta, we just opened 2 in the last 6 weeks, 2's in Colorado, and we have several more that we have contracts to develop in both Colorado and in Georgia. And then I've got a couple other little joint ventures that I'm working on, but they're not done yet, so I can't really speak to them. But this year we'll do between 30 and 35 million in sales in my operations, and we hope to grow that at about a 20 to 30% clip a year.
And how do you find business today, Greg, and what's the driving force behind it? I know we're going to get into the why behind the why here, but you know, a lot of people say, well, we're down a little bit. This say, guys, we're up. And what would make a store be at a very high peak today? What are some of the things that in your operation are making it work?
Well, you know, in the automotive business, it's never been harder. Anybody tells you it's easy, it's just not true. If you go back to the 90s when I got into the business, there was a lot of broke cars. I mean, every day you got your broke cars, and you know, very few oil changes and things. You could turn the oil changes away, and you didn't have to advertise much. If you had a decent location, reputation alone was enough to carry you. And it was a simpler time. You had Yellow Pages, which was, you know, I mean, that's about all most people did is Yellow Pages and maybe a little bit of marriage mail, and you were off to the races. Well, the world has totally changed. You know, if you grew up the way I did, your parents told you you don't need to advertise. You know, that's a waste of money. Well, you know, I tend to agree with that 20 years ago. Today, you're watching shops, very good shops. And if people are on this phone line that have noticed their decline in car count from 2 years ago to last year to this year, they're in grave danger, and I mean grave danger of going out of business because they've lost sight that the market has changed. That what we did 20 years ago just doesn't work today. It's a maintenance game. You got to be able to get out there, and maintenance isn't, when a car breaks, people go, hey, who repairs a car? Maintenance people, they're not thinking they need anything. They're coming in for an oil change and they're getting a brake flush or whatever. So if they're not looking for that great shop. They're just looking for fast. Then you have to convert them when they come in. So the biggest thing that I see today is you have to be a marketing expert. You have to balance that at the same time with staffing correctly. It's real hard when you're not making money to have somebody tell you, you need to add staff. Well, you add a technician and your other technician quits. So the only way to do it is you've got to have a marketing plan that's working simultaneously with adding technicians. If you can't do that, it's a slow, miserable life. You know, this business will just eat you alive. So that's what I've seen. I'm sure that's what you've heard. It doesn't matter what part of the country you're in. That's the way this game's played.
So I know back to that number one bullet item there. You know why you know you talked a little about why you advertise and how often should we be I guess getting our name in front of those potential buyers within your target market, so to speak. How often should we be showing ourselves in front of them?
Well, here's there's two or three parts to advertising that's good to know. One is how much do I spend, where do I put my money, how often, and I can just tell you what I do. Our stores across the board average about $6,000 a month in advertising. Now, I've done Yellow Pages, I've done marriage mail, I've done direct mail, radio, newspaper, over the years, everything. And some things worked, 20 years ago that don't work today. For example, I was going back, that company in Texas, I was spending over $100,000 a year in Yellow Pages. I have not spent one dime in Yellow Pages since 2001. So there's a shift. If you're still spending a bunch of money in Yellow Pages, you might as well just throw the money out the window. It's not working for you. Even if they tell you, yeah, but we'll get you online, the real truth is online is just not driving enough customers. You know, we've done as much online and advertised pay-per-clicks, everything you can do, and it still doesn't come close to what they tell you for auto repair. So what we have found, and that's why I've created Mudlick Mail, is that direct mail and the proper amount of direct mail is the most, to me today, it may change in the future, but it is far and away the best return for your money. And the reason for that, there's a few things. As you may say, well, he's just saying that because he owns Mudlick Mail. No, I'm the biggest customer of Mudlick Mail. And the reason why it works so well is because what you're looking for that non-coupon shopper. You're looking for the customer, like the people on this phone. I'm sure most people on this phone are like me. They don't use coupons, even though you're inundated with them every day. Direct mail, no matter who you are, the one saving grace about that is you know that customer is going to look at that postcard. He may look at it for 30 seconds or 1 second before he throws it away, but he did look at it, he's seen your ad, and he threw it away. He made a buying decision right then. Well, our business is built on impressions. So the key to this is to do consistent direct mail every single month. And if you can imagine a chain, if you just keep every month that chain built, so this month they see your ad, they throw it away. Next month they see your ad, some of them throw it away, a few people come in. The next month, more people, because they've seen you. It takes 6 impressions to really get the full result of direct mail. So that's why some people will do direct mail once, and then they'll go, oh, I didn't get that good a return, so I'm going to quit. Or they don't track the return. Marriage mail, the reason why I don't do both, I only do direct mail. The only time to do marriage mail is when you want to go outside of your market potential. Let's say that you have, you know, in a 3-mile radius, you have 15,000 homes. Well, you can hit that with direct mail. You may say, well, there's no competition outside of 3 miles, but to go out 5 miles, that may be 60,000 homes. Well, it's too expensive to do direct mail. That's a great case for marriage mail, the only case for marriage mail, because it allows you to go out to those farther markets a lot cheaper. Yellow Pages, there's no use for that at all. If you look at the internal, this is where I might step on some toes, but internal marketing on your database is only good when you're losing your database, meaning your customers are going away. You can do an internal letter. You can pull your database, which we can do at Mudlick Mail. We can pull your database, do one of my direct mail pieces that we've done when we've had that happen, and you'll get a great response. We don't encourage that all the time because it's much more expensive. And think about this. Most of your customers are coming from a 3-mile radius, depending on how dense of area you are. Some people, they come from a lot farther, but most shops are coming from a 3-mile area. If you just direct mail that market every single month, you're going to hit those internal customers anyway and save a lot of money. So what I've seen as mistakes with advertising is that people spend their budget on things that don't work. Yellow Pages, newspaper, you know, marriage mail, Little League baseball, just a little bit of everything. And instead of just saying, you know what, I'm going to hit my full market potential each month, consistently every month, and I can check that off my list. Now, whether you use it me or not, that's your choice, but that is the correct way to market this deal. One thing I didn't touch on is how many direct mail pieces do you do? We talk about doing your full market potential. What that means is when you call us, we will pull your information from around your store. We will show you exactly what your full potential is in that market. That's why some people might have 8,000 homes, that's their market potential. Some people have 15,000. We, on average, do about $6,000 a month per store. We got some stores that will spend, $9,000 and some that only spend $5,000 because that is their full market potential. So that's my take on the advertising. Hopefully that answers it.
There was a question. I was on the phone with a gentleman that's on the phone with us today, this afternoon, and we were talking about, we just did a demo for him, and I was going over those demos with him and talking to him about the carrier routes and specifics of how it works. And then he asked me a question, said, well, what kind of return am I going to get on this? And which is always a valid question.
It's a great
question. And now when someone asks you that, how would you answer that?
Well, I just tell them the truth. Here's the way it works. And that is such a great question. And it's one we all have to ask. Okay, when you do direct mail, the one thing that you have to remember is it is an instant return. We're so confident of it. If you do direct mail with us, we give you 100% guarantee, money back guarantee. Because here's what you're going to see. If you do a direct mail piece with us, you're going to get a lot of coupons in. That's predictable. And those coupons that come in the door, if you track those, you're going to get anywhere from $100 to $110 ticket average off of those coupons. That's going to pay for your direct mail piece. But remember what I said. The customer that we want to get is the non-coupon shopper. That's a guy that's not going to drag in the ad. So what you're going to notice over time is that you may go, well, I've spent $3,000 in direct mail, and I did $5,000 worth of sales off direct mail. Well, when we've gone back and said, okay, now tell us how much you're up over last year. As you know, Gary, some people will be up double. They might be up 30% or 50%, whatever the number is, but it's way in excess of what the coupons are that they drove in, and that's because of the holy grail, which is the non-coupon shopper. The only way to get a non-coupon shopper is through direct mail, because marriage mail, the reason why is if you think of marriage mail is like those Val packs that come in an envelope, or the little newspaper things that come in the mail. Well, a non-coupon shopper doesn't even open those. They just throw them away. A postcard, they have to look at it. They don't know if it's coming from us or from a friend or something that they're interested in, something other than direct mail. So they will look at it. That's where you drive that big business. So what I tell everybody is expect to get a return off the coupon shoppers only. They're not our ideal customer, but they are paying customers, and they'll pay the bill. But watch your sales over last year. When you put this together, there is, I don't know the exact number, but I would bet you over a year's time, our Mudlick Mail clients, and we can probably post some of these, I'd say our average is probably up 30 to 40% in sales in a time when most shop owners out there are down in sales. So hopefully that answers his question.
Yeah, and I want to tell everybody out in the audience, if you have a direct question to Greg about advertising or anything you see on the screen here, just raise your hand, we'll unmute you, and then you can ask that direct question. So, don't hesitate. We like questions. That gets us all working, and it also spurs some things that Greg might want to talk about that just comes right out of those questions. So feel free to ask. Feel free to raise your hand and keep that going. And Greg, I'm going to kind of jump back here to this $50,000 challenge that we put on the board. And the reason I put $50,000, I could have put 100, I could have put 75. I just thought $50,000 had a good ring to it. I'd like to put $50,000 away in savings this summer. I don't know about anybody else, but I think that's a pretty good number. So, And what I'm looking at here is the market potential and then the 4 building blocks. And we've been teaching this in our workshops. We do first and second Tuesday. And that's the correct PMI process, the anytime, the isolate, and additional concerns. And that's what we've been teaching to make sure that they're maximizing every vehicle that comes through that door. So, it's just not about putting cards in the mailbox to make this work. So walk us through that process.
Well, and this is getting to the rest of your it all really ties together of what your webinar is about today, which is on the people side, which I can speak to this one deal you have here, but probably what would make more sense is to go to the people.
Well, that's fine. Let's go right there. Okay. So, you know, you got to have the right people to do the right things. Now, how do you find them?
Well, okay. Now, this is what, again, in our business is very difficult to do because, you know, you think about it, you know, somebody says, hey, you got to add a technician. So you add a technician, another one quits. So a lot of the hiring the right people is spending. There's two. This is going to be a little bit complicated, but it ties together. If you look at your time management, number 6, and number 2, really in my book goes together. And here's why.
Okay.
If you think about where owners spend their time, and I've done this for years, so, and I've made this mistake. You know, if you ask people, well, how much time do you spend on profits, on P&Ls and budgeting? Some people will say I spend 60% of my time, some will say 30, some say 0. And then you ask people how much time they spend on sales, and they'll say, oh my God, I spend probably 80% of my time on sales. And then when you say hiring people, they'll go, well, whenever I need somebody, I put an ad in the paper, or I look for somebody and hire them. I'm going to give you the proper breakdown, and I've given this out before, of at least what I think is proper. This is how we spend our time. This is how I've grown a company and what I believe with all my heart. If you want to be a really successful shop owner, you should spend 60% of your time looking for great people. That means technicians, managers, and GSs, general service. You should spend 30% of your time on sales. And 10% of your time is on budgeting and accounting. And this all ties together. We could do a seminar or a webinar just on this. So if you spend 60% of your time looking for great people, then you're going to have a backlog of technicians wanting to come to work for you. Because you're interviewing, isn't it funny, you know, technicians come around when you're staffed. But boy, when you're short-staffed, you can't find one. And so you should constantly be out. Right now, the hottest thing out there is Craigslist. We get more technicians by running an ad in Craigslist. In some markets, it's free. And in some markets, they might charge $50 or $25. Been a great vehicle for us. And that's with 20 stores out there. If you hire the right people, especially at the front counter, everything else we talk about becomes really easy. One of my mentors one time told me, I asked him, you know, for some advice, and he said, Greg, I always hire smart people because stupidity's forever. And that is so true. If you hire smart people, and part of that, and we'll have to, there's a lot to the people side, you know, knowing what to hire and who to hire, that's a whole deal in itself. But that's kind of the breakdown of the time that you should spend. So when you talk about hiring great people, a lot of times it's just the time that an owner puts into it. I try to think of my companies and my stores as like a sports team. I want to put the best team together to win the championship. So I'm constantly looking at my teams and looking for weaknesses. And I'm constantly thinking, wow, if I could get somebody that can flag 60 hours a week instead of somebody flagging 30, you know, look at my upside potential. And so it's the beautiful thing about now, Gary, is there has never been in my 19 years an easier time or better time to hire people. All you have to think about is look at all the dealerships that have closed. Look at all the independents that's closed. I mean, I've had more people apply, you know, where we're completely staffed in all of our markets, and we still get just a plethora of people that apply. You know, there's independents going out of business every day now, you know, with this market. So it's not hard to find people. It's more putting the right amount of time and emphasis on it.
So in your estimate, what you're saying is you spend 60% of your time in that hiring or recruiting and hiring process.
Yes. And
or building a stable full of excellent people if you need somebody.
Right. Because you got it exactly right. The sales part of it is sure a lot easier when you have great technicians and you have great employees at the front counter. The hardest thing to do is to train somebody that's not very talented. It just doesn't work.
Now, I know we say with the right people, and if you were going to, design a perfect Harry and Mary to work the front counter, right? What would this person look like?
Well, now just be careful because
not looks, but
well, no. What I mean is what works for me. I've learned over time trying to help shop owners is that may not necessarily work for a shop owner.
Okay.
And here's why. I personally like my general manager to be somebody from outside of the industry. Most of my general managers come from a different background. And I like to train them. And the reason why is I don't want them over-educating customers at the front counter. It makes it a lot easier to use my systems when they have nothing else to fall back on. I can teach them exactly my way to do it. But now if an owner feels like that front counter guy needs to know how to rebuild an engine or know every detail or how to diagnose a car, then a non-industry guy is not going to last one day with him. He's just going to go, there's no way. But I've found the most success is to have a leader, a general manager that's had a lot of good training in a different industry, and then his number one assistant is a really strong industry guy. Maybe an ex-technician, it may be somebody that's been a service writer for years at a dealership or for Goodyear or Firestone or somebody like that. That seems to be the best one-two punch. And then as an owner, what helps, especially in small businesses, a lot of times somebody from outside the industry will have way more management training than the owner themselves ever had. A lot of owners have never had any formal training. And so they get to learn and benefit from this new employee that they've hired, and the new employee benefits from the owner because the owner's teaching them his way to answer the phone, his way to sell a job, his way to go over a job with a technician or a customer. Just a much easier process. Very hard to convince shop owners to do that because they think, well, I just need to find me somebody that already knows what they're doing. But as you guys have probably found out, there's not very many good people out there in our industry. If they are, they own a shop. So there's a ton of people outside of the industry that are super talented. So why not take advantage of that?
Now, you can define if they choose to operate with all industry people on the front counter, they still can be successful in the model. But you feel it'll be harder?
It's way harder.
Okay.
Because people tend to fall back on whatever success they've had. So if I hire somebody from the industry, that's a guy that won't think he needs to do my phone skills. He doesn't want to do my scripts. Well, because he'll fall back on, well, I work for Jim's Automotive and I did just fine answering the phone my way. Right. And he may kind of appease you while you're there and struggle to answer the phone your way or open the door for a customer or sell jobs a certain way. But as soon as you leave, he resorts right back to where he used to be. Where a non-industry guy has no idea, no clue. All he knows is what you teach him. You can take him, and if he's smart, man, they can just learn this stuff so fast. And now you got somebody that, one, he's not going to ever get recruited by anybody else because he's not known in the industry. He doesn't have a reputation, good or bad.
Okay.
So nobody's going to bug him. You can develop him, and he's not going to go anywhere else. You know why? No one else will hire him in the industry because he's not a technician. He's not this 20-year industry guy. So there's so many advantages to hiring a very sharp non-industry person. It just the list goes on and on. I can just tell you that's how I've done my business. There's a lot of successful shop owners that I've helped over the years Some might be on this phone call that can attest to the same thing, that it is just an awesome deal when you can hire somebody and feel like you have a partner at your front counter. You respect them because they've got maybe more experience than you do at managing people. And then let me tell you, if you have a non-industry person, not all of them are good, that's for sure, but if you have a good business person at your front counter, your turnover with technicians will go down dramatically. Because one of the big problems with turnover with technicians tend to be prima donnas. We all know that. And, you know, they tend, well, as soon as you lose a technician, the technician's left is the one that starts flexing on you and starts strutting around going, maybe I need to get a raise, you know, or I'm going to quit. Or you hire somebody and they quit. Somebody that's a skilled professional knows how to diffuse that before that ever happens. You know, and sometimes the owners, because they're ex-technicians themselves, they want to flex and show their independence, that they're an owner. And it's real easy for an owner to tell somebody, you take your box and get the hell out of here, not knowing what they're going to do once the guy leaves. You know, I'll turn wrenches myself before, you know, I have somebody talk to me like that. A good business person will be able to diffuse both sides of that, where he knows, he'll understand the way the technicians think, and he'll diffuse it before it happens, so that the communication's a lot better in the shop. So if you're looking for somebody that's a dynamic business person, beautiful thing is, believe it or not, they cost less than people in our industry. You can get a great non-industry guy to run your shop for probably $50,000 a year plus bonus. And if you want to learn more about that, because I know we've got to move on, you should call Tim at Mudlick Mail. He's been fully trained in my hiring procedures, and he can go over that individually as well. I know you have as well, Gary.
Yes, sir. And, so, you know, I know all of these bullet points I have up here. No, it's only all 7 of them kind of fit together. None of them really work independently of each other.
No.
And the why behind the why, we know why we need to advertise, because we need to continually expose our business to everybody that has the potential. We know we have to hire the right people, and I know without the right people, and I've done a lot of training over the years in trying to, it sounds funny, but train old dogs new tricks.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what, it's a dogfight, man, and I know that's kind of a play on words, but they never really finally ever make the whole curve, the whole shift. They're still fighting back the old way.
Right, and your risk of losing them is high. Because, I mean, think about it from an industry person's perspective. Okay, I come to Gary's shop, and I got to do all this crap, man, that he wants me to do. I go to Bob's Automotive. He doesn't care. He's not even around. I can answer the phone I want to. I can search the internet when I want to. I can screw off. This guy wants me doing callbacks and answering the phone a certain way and not saying certain things. I mean, so why would an industry guy who's, you know, in his 40s, why would he come to work for you and stay there very long? Well, you just got to pay him $70,000 a year, you know, way overpay him to get him, and then they're still miserable. So, I mean, it's just what I've learned. Let me tell you, I'd love to just hire all industry people and be done with it. Just, I haven't been successful at that. I haven't seen anybody else successful at it in any big, even the bigger companies now are doing the same thing. They're going after non-industry people. They've just learned. And, you know, if you look at your number 3 and number 4, they just tie in, those two tie together very, very well. And if you don't mind, I'd like to speak to both of them at the same time. When you
absolutely.
When you talk about systems and scripts, they're really one and the same. Scripts are part of systems. And the reason why you want to do this, when you hire great people, now if you have a system in place, how you answer the phone, how you put in work orders, how you go out to give the technician the work order, how you PMI a car, we call it preventive maintenance inspection on a car, you know, how you test drive a car, how you bill out, how you close your store. It becomes even it's crazy how easy this can become. Systems will allow you to be consistent with your whole entire team. It'll increase morale. Remember, the things that cause low morale is inconsistency in the management staff, lack of recognition. When you have systems, you can recognize great performance. So it really handles this turnover issue and this people issue. It's so predictable. It's easy to teach systems. It's very hard to teach when you're scatterbrained. And even if you are a scatterbrain, which most people are, I'd say I'm a scatterbrain. That's why I live by systems. I love all different subjects. But it causes you to stay on point. You can become a systems expert even if you're not an organized person. Let's put it that way. So, and probably the biggest deal is systems allow for a smooth operation, a smooth day. So that's the key to systems. If you want to get into scripts, probably the things that, off the top of my head on scripts is it's more professional. When I got into the business, we used to give prices out over the phone. Well, imagine me not knowing the industry, trying to come up with how I even price stuff out. And so we had to come up with a way to not give prices out over the phone by necessity. And because we did that, we created a great phone scripts that gets customers in the door. If our shop owners just realize you don't make a dime until that customer shows up, and if you give them a price outside of an oil change or an emissions inspection or something like that, there's a high likelihood you're never going to see that customer. You're going to get a few, but most of them are just going to keep shopping. And if you give them a price and they show up, that means you were probably the cheapest, and that is a price shopping machine. That's a customer that's going to hate you at the end of the day. That's that customer that only cares about price, that's going to rip you apart when it's all done. That's the one that's going to sue you. So it doesn't work. So scripts, whether it's selling or it's talking on the phone, it again allows you to be consistent. Everybody's on the same page. An owner, think about this as an owner. You could have your people, whether it's talking on the phone the way you want them to talk on the phone. They can sell a job the way you want them to sell a job. It just makes things so much better. And again, it's easy to train. You can take anyone and teach them. Here's how I want to answer the phone, or here's how I want you to sell a job. It keeps bad phrases and words out of conversations. You don't hear things like, well, Mr. Johnson, you got a minute? I hope you're sitting down. That's the kind of stuff that we don't, instead of going, hey, we have great news today. We've checked out your vehicle, and overall it's in really great shape. And then we walk them through the sell. So it's just having a different spin. Again, think about this. Even the big guns out there don't do a good job with systems. This is one of those things like direct mail that can level the playing field between you and anybody out there, including myself. You can't be beat if you have the best systems, best advertising, best people. That's the secret to this deal. So hopefully that helps.
It does. And questions, comments, or thoughts out there? I have not seen a hand go up yet. Surely there's something you folks are dying to ask, or maybe we're covering everything, Greg, and we're just really good at what we do.
Well, I have to probably think it's probably the latter.
Now, I know I've heard this before from you, and Tim and I have used it, and we're talking about validating your people and their ability to do what they're doing. Then we also talked about competence, unconscious or competence. There are some things that I think as you train your people along the training venue, how do you rate your people, and how would you do that? I know I've heard this before, but maybe some folks on the phone haven't.
Well, sure. Well, when we hire people, now we have a validation checklist. So the first step, once we hire somebody, we go through orientation. We have a training schedule for them. They go through the training. When they're finished with training, we do what's called a validation checklist. For years, I did every single person myself. Now I don't. I use other people do it, but they use the same checklist. That's simply going through, okay, let's walk through how we answer the phone, and they role play with you. how you do it. How do you take in a customer? They tell you. How do you check out a, how do you close out the credit card machine, to how you bill out a ticket. So we have a list of things. Well, once they can go through all that, we check it all off and we both sign it off. And it's the reason why I call it a validation checklist versus certification is because I always felt like this business is constantly changing. And because it's constantly changing, I have to keep updating and changing my checklist. Things radically have changed in the 20 years. So validation means ongoing. Certified means one time. So I felt like I don't want to get into the certification business. I want to be in the validation business where I can go back every year and revalidate them and make sure that they're current with what we're doing. So that's how we do that. Now, when you're talking about competency, the way we rate people, typically when a non-industry guy comes in, we call them unconscious incompetence. And that's basically, they're so dumb, they don't even know what they don't know. Now, they're not dumb people. It's just that's how, they don't know nothing about the business. They don't even know. Well, then as we start to train them, they get consciously incompetent. They realize, man, I don't know what I don't know. I mean, I know what I don't know. I'm in trouble. So once we teach them that, then we move them over into conscious competence. Most of us would know this if you learn a new sport or you learn, imagine if you have to, or if you learn how to dance and you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4. You're having to think about it. You're consciously doing it. So it's conscious competence. Now this is where most business owners fail. They'll train somebody to that point, meaning they'll get them to where they're doing what you ask them to do, but it's only conscious. They're having to think about it. You have to stay with that employee until we get them to where we really want them, which is unconscious competence. That means they're doing what you're asking them to do without thinking about it. Now they're so good, and that's where businesses, that's where I fail. If I don't get them to that point where when they answer the phone, they don't have to think about the script, it's automatic. They wouldn't even dream of answering it any other way, or how they sell a job, or how they, greet a customer or bill out a ticket. So that's our little rating system, and we can look at somebody and quickly identify, based on how they're working. Most of the time, they're in that either unconscious incompetence, which is new, or they're in the conscious, I know this is hard for people, conscious competence, which means they know what they're doing and they're thinking about it. That's a new person that's doing really well, that's trying, but they're having to think about everything that they're doing.
Okay, because Tim and I use that conversation a lot, and you sit there and you kind of roll your marbles around in your head. If you sit and think about it and listen to it, it has a great sense of value to know where your people really truly are, and kind of that's the why behind the right people. If you can't get them moved to unconscious competence, you really need to upgrade that position, don't you?
Well, first you have to say, this is my fault, because I have not spent enough time. Here's where people get in trouble. They get them to conscious competence, meaning they have to think about what they're doing. But because they're new, this is typical. Because they're new, it's a very vulnerable time for a new employee. If you don't stay on it, they'll forget. It's kind of like taking a test. You can study all night, take a test, and forget what you just took 5 minutes later. Well, that's because it was conscious competence. You knew it just for that day to take that test. But if you kept teaching on that subject for another 3 or 4 weeks past that, they would really know the information. So a lot of times it's not the employee, because well, we trained him and he knew what he was doing, and then all of a sudden, man, he just stopped doing it. Well, it's probably more of a factor that we didn't stick to our training even after they knew it. We have to keep following up, recognizing their performance. If you hire somebody using our hiring criteria or something similar, and you really train them to the nines, it shouldn't be an issue of, oh, this guy just doesn't want to do it. It usually falls back on us. It usually comes down to we didn't stick with it long enough. Sometimes it is a matter of a bad hire, but that's going to be more of the exception than the rule. A lot of times it's in our training. And then we start blaming that employee. You know, that guy's terrible. I keep hiring bad people. You know, it's kind of like the guy's been married 7 times and just says he hadn't found the right woman. You know, that's training a lot of times. If you've had, you know, several people at your front counter and every one of them haven't worked out, it's not those people. It's our way of training and sticking to it until they know it so well that they don't have to think about it. And a lot of times you can read that if an employee's nervous around you. A lot of my employees get nervous when I come in and I get to see how good if they have to think about it, that's when they're going to mess up. Because they're thinking about it. But if they're not having to think about it, they'll answer the phone right in front of you. They'll sell a job in front of you. They're very comfortable. They're fluid. Then you know, man, this is where I got to go. So it's more of an owner reading. This is where my employee is. Now, how do I keep it interesting so that he really gets to that final level? It's just like a technician. You watch a really great technician, he can tear down a motor and not even think about it. He doesn't have to put parts, he just throws them all down, he gets in, he can put it all back together, it's perfect. Somebody that's never done it before, they're very slow, methodical, and they take their time, at least you hope they are. And, you know, there might be a small bucket of bolts and stuff left over at the end of that job. That's conscious, confident. You know, they're not, this guy can do it without thinking about it. This other guy has to think of every step. That's really the difference between a great technician and an average technician, or a poor technician.
Okay. Now, what's the why behind the location? I know that's you know, you always hear this location, 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 and a lot of times, Greg, as Tim and I are out working the marketplace and finding new clients to work with, their locations are really probably a C, C minus, or maybe a B. So, you know, if they're looking for a new location or they're in an existing location, I know when you're out looking, there are certain criteria you're looking for. So how important is location? What's the why behind the location?
Well, I mean, it all ties into the whole picture. You know, if you do direct mail, ideally you want to be able to do direct mail, and then that customer drives by your shop every day and sees your shop, they get direct mail, drive by your shop, and eventually they're going to use you. They're going to try you. And so a great location is just, I mean, you can work around a bad location. We'll talk about that in a second, but a great location makes everything easier. You know, you have so much more advantages than you do with a bad location. You can't be out-positioned by a competitor when you have a great location. Here's some things, you know, why don't I just give you a few things that I look for in a great location, and I'll do my best on this deal off the top of my head. I've done it for a few years. Probably the first thing that I look for.
Maybe this is going to be unconscious competence.
This better be. The first thing, before I ever go out and look at a site, I always want really high demographics, and what that means is high income area, which we can provide, you know, for anybody. If you tell them, in fact, we know from just shop owners from all over the country what everybody's demographics are. We can tell you kind of what range you're in. My stores tend to be in the very highest range, meaning 85,000 income and higher, a lot of meaning those zip codes around that shop. That's the first thing. I won't even go look at a site if it doesn't meet my demographic criteria. Then the next thing I think about is it close to a shopping center? I like my stores close to the grocery store because I know most people go to the grocery store 2 times a week. So if they're going there 2 times a week, I know they're going to go by my store at least 2 times a week. Hopefully they go by that 2 times, and then they go by it 10 times, 1 in the morning and 1 at night on their way to work. So the other thing that I look for is it on a main road? So if I'm on a shopping center and it's on a main road, now it's really appealing to me. And then I want to look at, this is a smaller issue, but it's something it's a big deal to me, and that is I like to be on the drive to work side. That means what side of the road do people drive to work on? And most people, you see it in the mornings, one side of the road's blown out, and at night it's blown out the other way. It's just one of those mental things. It's easier to get into our shop. I don't care how they pick up their car, but I care how easy it is for them to get in to drop it off. So that's a big deal to us. The visibility. if you're not on the main road, let's say you're a half a block off, but you're super visible, that would be a second tier for me. But if it's super visible, I take it. If a store, even on a main road, has poor visibility, I'll pass on it. It's just too hard with all the stuff for eyeballs to look at driving down the road. I just don't think they're going to look at an automotive shop, so I tend to stay away from that. Now, if you have a bad location, then what happens is your advertising is at more of a disadvantage, and let me tell you why. A bad location means you have to spend a lot of the real estate on that direct mail piece giving directions. So I call it, it's really advertising just turns into expensive directions. Here's where we're located, right behind here, next to the barn, by the fence, you know, and that's, but you have to do that. You get to tell less of the story of why should you come to us and more of here's where we're located. And most shop owners have the wrong impression that, well, if they only just knew where I was, they'd come in. Well, that's not true. They might, even if they knew where you were, because you have such a bad location, they might be afraid to go in there. You know, or it may be filthy when they go by there, or it's an old building. It's not, it's kind of like convenience stores. You know, most of us, you know, when you think about stopping somewhere and getting a Coke, you tend to go, man, I like that really nice looking convenience store, not this junky one down here. Even though you're just buying the same Coke, you'll tend to go into the nicest convenience store if it's about the same money. That's, at least that's what I do. I like to go into the, because I might want something else, and those bigger, nicer ones might have, you know, something else I want while I'm in there. So that's my deal on location. We do a lot of work with our clients on locations. I'm actually at Mudstock. I've done a growth and strategy class for a lot of our clients, well, not a lot of our clients, but our top-end clients is looking to open locations. I'm doing one this year at Mudstock in September, and it's 2 days. It's very intense, and it's going into real details of how to find a great location, how to negotiate a lease, should you buy your location, should you lease it, how long of a lease should you get, how do I get financing, what do I do about equipment. I go through everything and teach them. If you're looking for a location, you might want to sign up with Gary or with Tim on getting into a growth and strategy session. And that class, we haven't marketed it yet, but it's almost sold out. You know, it always sells out very quickly.
All right, because that's always comes up, and then a lot of times I think what we're up against out in our industry and working with clients, as Tim and I do a lot, and then you get to see them also in our group meetings and on the phone calls, is the location is not the best, and we have to, and they have to create the best of a bad situation.
Yeah, and we've helped people time and time again do that, where they have not the best location, and you know, and this is probably the thing that's hard for not just shop owner but any business. To get a prime location, let's say, you're going to pay, and this is just as an example, a great AAA location, you're going to pay $12,000 a month in rent or no payment to a bank. A bad location, a C location, you're going to pay $2,000 to $6,000 in rent. So what tends to happen with the shop owners, they'll say, well, God, I don't want to spend $12,000 in rent. And what they don't realize is that is so cheap when you compare the two. The store that's $12,000 in rent could do $140,000 in sales, you know, or let's say $120,000. We have stores that will do $140,000 and above. Would you rather have that or have that store that does $60,000 on a good month with $5,000 rent? You know, the numbers, rent is never a good reason unless it's apples to apples to pass on a AAA location. In other words, if it's two AAA locations and you can get a rent cheaper, that's fine. But if you can get a AAA location versus a C location, oh my gosh, it's just not, I wouldn't even consider the C location. Because remember, let's say you go into the C location and it only costs you $5,000. Well, then a great operator, somebody really savvy, is probably going to end up in that #1 spot that you passed on. Now you've got to compete with him, and he's got a superior location. And then God help you if he understands marketing. No one else can compete against him. He has kind of a trifecta in that market.
Yeah. Well, I saved about 10% of our time here today to talk about the money and the accounting side, and you always say you spend 10% of your time on budgeting and accounting. So, why do you budget, and why do you watch the numbers? What's the why behind it?
Well, and I hope everybody hasn't gone to sleep, because I really want you to hear this. The difference between surviving in this business and getting rich, and I mean getting rich, is your accounting. And you can, if you can roll your eyes or get tired, it's really hard to get shop owners to understand this. I've had shop owners tell me, I'm really not good at accounting, or we don't really mess with that stuff. That's the guy that's going out of business. He doesn't realize it, but he will go out of business. It's way, way, way past the time for people not to do profit and loss statements. I believe I could take probably anybody on this call today and fly him in, and in a day or two, he would have enough information, he could run my company successful, probably for a year, before anything, even just by the systems I have in place and the accounting team that I have together. Because think of accounting this way for technicians. The difference between a poor technician and a great technician is ability to diagnose. They have the best diagnostic equipment, or they know how to use it better. They know how to fix drivability problems. It's diagnosis. Accounting is your diagnostic equipment. It tells you what's wrong with your company. If you don't have good, clean, accurate, timely P&Ls, you cannot run your company. I'll tell you something else. I would do the flip. I could go into a shop who has bad accounting, leave it the way it is. You have me come in and run that shop, and I bet I'll do no better than they did. I'm no smarter than they are, no better. Without the diagnostic tool, I can't diagnose their shop. I might think it's one thing and it's something else. So accounting. And you've made it easy for these guys. You use our P&L, so it's exactly what we use in our operation, and you have it where all they got to do is go online and punch in the numbers. I wish I would have had that 20 years ago. So if you're not good at accounting, or you don't like it, that's okay. I don't love it, but you got to do it. You got to do it and get good at it, because without it, or if you're living out of the day where you just look to see, well, if I got money left over at the end of the month and I made a profit, you're headed for doomsday. I hate to scare you, but that's the truth. And Gary, you've seen people go out of business. It's always the same thing, is that they don't know where they're at, and they don't know how to fix it. So what they think is that the mindset is, it's going to get better next month. It's, the heat that hasn't started yet. We're going to have summertime. That's when I'm going to make more money. And it never happens. It's always right around the corner. And that corner never comes. There's always something. And so I can't, out of everything, if you don't have good, clean P&Ls that you can diagnose, if you don't understand how to diagnose, get with Gary on that. He's one of the best out there to really help you go, well, look where you're at. I don't know what else I can say about accounting other than, I sure wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't have real strong accounting procedures.
Amen, brother. Absolutely. So the Q&A time is here. Anything that you might want to ask, something that you heard, feel free to ask. And if we don't have any questions, then Greg, I think we've covered what we want to do today. And
Great.
If you're looking for direct mail and advertising, there's certainly Mudlick Mail. If you're looking for budgeting and accounting, that's us. That's Automotive Service Leaders. We can help you there. As a team, we're much better and stronger together. So you get a little bit of all of us, and it makes it work a lot better for you. So Questions, comments, or thoughts? If there are none, whoop, there's a hand gone up. Great. All right, Mr. Hicks, I will get you unmuted in just 1 second. Bob?
Yes, sir.
You're on the air.
Thank you, sir. I was wanting to see if I might get a copy or sample of Greg's validation checklist. I emailed Tim about that earlier.
Yeah, you know, we probably need to figure. I have a little bit. Let me modify it a little bit, and let me tell you why. I was reluctant on releasing, you know, my validation checklist or hiring criteria because I've done it before, and somebody just puts it in place. It doesn't work as well for them because we're a different operation, meaning we're multi-unit, and so some of the things doesn't apply to a single store operator. You know, especially when you get into, I don't know how best to do this. I'll get with Tim and Gary.
It's like your accounting bags that go in every week.
Yeah.
Packages. I wouldn't be using that, so I'd modify it to suit. I'm just looking for a guide.
Okay, well then what we'll do is put a guide together for you, and Tim, if you're on the line, just get with me on this later so that Gary can have it. And what we'll do is give it to Gary so that if Gary, one of his people need it, then he'll have it for you so that he can use it.
That would be great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Okay.
And Bob, thank you for being one of those mud lickers and one of our group members, and certainly a follower of a budget and a financial package. So, Bob, I thank you for your mighty efforts you put in your business in the last couple of years. It's been awesome.
Well, thank you, Gary. We have a little saying around here. It's WWGSD. What would Greg Sands do? That's what my son Greg and I. That's what
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you,
Bob. Thank you, buddy.
Yeah,
appreciate you being here. Thanks.
And you know, Gary, I'm not trying to be hesitant on something. I've run into some problems on, you know, with checklists, or especially with hiring criterias. Is that, you know, what I don't want is people to just rush out and use what I've got, and then it doesn't, because they haven't put the time in. It's kind of like conscious competence. They never get to the unconscious stage. If they take the time to modify it, like Bob has said he would do, then or maybe you can modify it. You know your guys well, or Tim with the Mudlick Mail people. I just don't want to put something out there and somebody try and go, well, this doesn't work for me. Well, it wasn't designed for their particular business, and so that's the only reason why I'm a little reluctant, because I know when something's easy and you just give it to them, they tend not to use it, and so the vast majority of people.
That is so true, and then I think if they put some time and effort into it and test drive it and find out what works for them, that's their checklist they should be using.
Right, and there is a little modification because all of us are a little bit different, and so I want something that really works well for them.
Right.
So good. Give me some more questions.
Well, I don't see any hands flying through the air, so Greg, I want to thank you for being here today, and we'll see you in Colorado in a couple of days.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm pumped up about it. It's going to
be we got
great.
a lot of shop owners coming in, so we're going to be ready.
Well, I'm already doing my deep knee bends and trying to get in shape for that one. So I'm ready to. Any questions they got, have them write them down, bring them with them too, if they can think of anything. I love those meetings. I appreciate you inviting me there, and it's always great to meet shop owners in person. I'm going to have some of my partners there as well. My partner in Service Street, Bill Fagan, who very few people have ever met, is actually coming into that. I hope you don't mind, Gary.
Oh, no
and then I always bring in some of my management team. The Mudlick Mill guys will be there. So we really love those. It's good training for all of us. I always walk away learning a lot. So I'm really excited about this one.
Sounds great. And Greg, thanks again for your time. And Tim, thanks for all you do with Mudlick Mail and help our clients out. I really do thank you. You all have a great rest of the day. And whatever you do, stay safe and count the money at the end of the day.
All right. Thanks, Gary.
All right. Bye-bye.